break-even analysis, and pricing positioning strategy. We'll start with looking at the break-even point analysis. So we have a t-shirt that we want to sell. Cost of goods sold is the cost of materials used to make the product, and it also includes the cost of labor to make the product. VC is the variable cost, but the commissions and other compensation on the sales, specific sales. They also include shipping and handling, credit card fees, anything that has specifically to do with the sale of the item itself. Fixed cost, those are items that don't change based on sales volume. Whether you sell nothing or whether you sell 1,000,000 t-shirts, your rent stays the same. General salaries stay the same, your loan and interest payments stay the same, etc. So those are fixed costs. And then your retail is your retail price per item sold. So then we have our fixed costs of $3,000, and we're going to subtract our cost of goods sold from our retail cost. That leaves $16. So 3,000 divided by 16 is 188 units, times the retail price means that in order to cover our fixed costs, cost of goods sold, and variable costs related to cost of goods sold, we have to bring in a minimum of $4,688. Now let's take a look at pricing models and factors to consider with those pricing models. Our first consideration is positioning. Do we want to position this t-shirt as a high-end specialty item? Neiman Marcus uses high-end as their positioning strategy, or maybe we're going more for a low-cost position, something more like Walmart. Maybe we're wanting to be somewhere in between. We also need to look at the demand curve before we set our pricing and factor in, is this a t-shirt that will be popular long-term, or is it something very limited in its connection with people? Costs are something you definitely need to consider as a new entrepreneur. That is an area very often miscalculated when someone is new to an area of focus. So you'll want to give yourself a little bit more fudge factor than necessary so that if there is something that you did not include, you're still protected. Environmental factors, they do contribute to your pricing model. As an example, you can sell copy paper at a higher price if it is partially recycled. Now, recycled paper costs more to make because of bleaching and cleaning the paper before it can be reused. So you have a lower price margin in that way, but you're able to mark it up extra as part of the pricing model. Fair pricing is something that you have to keep in mind. Price gouging is against the law. An example would be if water were restricted, then you wouldn't be allowed to sell it for an exorbitant amount, $5, $10, $25. You need to be able to keep prices realistic. Profit sway is for products that are very volatile in their price changes. You can either pass those sways on to your customer, and one day your priced item might be $5, the next day it might be $35, or you can find an average and then you keep the extra profit on the days when it's lower, and you lose a little bit more profit on the days when the cost is higher. So that's something you'd have to consider. You also need to consider your target market expectations. If people expect to pay $19.99 for a t-shirt, it might cost you way too much time, money, and effort to teach them and convince them that it's worth paying $29.99 for your t-shirt. What is it that makes your t-shirt special, and is it enough to fight for? What are your objectives with your pricing? Are you looking to be able to maximize your profit in as absolute short term as possible and then get going? If so, then you want to hit heavy and as high a price as absolutely possible so that you can make your money and move on. Now, if your goal is to be able to create long-term customers, maybe you're selling more than one t-shirt ever, then you would want to set your pricing lower to create that ongoing relationship and that customer connection. Maybe you're trying to sell as many of an item as possible, and in that case you might be selling for a little bit less profit so that you can get more numbers. Vice versa, You might be wanting to sell for as much margin as possible. So you're going to price it as high as absolutely possible. Even though you might sell fewer items, you'd be making more money per item. And then there's survival, and sometimes that happens when there's a price war going on and you have to sell for as absolute close to your break-even point as possible so that you can stay in business and ride out the difficulty. With your pricing methods, there's 3 general options. First, cost plus pricing, and that's when you add just a straight percentage or dollar amount above each item. So you might say every single different item in the store is marked up 20%, and that's your standard. We add 100% of the price, and that's our standard. The second is target return pricing. Well, we want to be able to pay back a $10,000 loan in 1 year. So our return is that amount plus interest. So you're going to price your individual units with enough price margin to allow that to happen. And then value-based pricing, that's more for service-based business. And to give you an example, let's say I have someone coming to mow my lawn. The actual cost for having them mow my lawn might be as low as $3 or $5. The physical wear and tear on the lawnmower, getting rid of the grass. So what I'm actually paying for is the value, the perceived value of that person's time. And there's also the tie-in to the expectation of value. I'm not going to pay $100 even though I don't want to do it. There's a balance that is within value-based pricing. I pay $30. It doesn't have anything to do with the actual cost of the lawn mowing itself. It has to do with the value that's placed on the service of the person and the time of the person that is invested in taking care of the lawn.